differences that are too much to overcome at times. And sometimes it just comes down to how engaged or responsive an organization is to move the process forward. We also note that frank discussions really need to happen with organizational leaders about past history and perceptions. And there's a culture adjustment for moving from years or decades of competing for funding, the same funding sometimes, to having to work together. And it takes an immense culture shift to do that. We also know that you have to keep in mind no organizations are set up the same. You can't expect them to be. Some staff spend more time in the community, like a community-based organization. Others spend more time at their desks and expect real-time updates, which isn't realistic. With sharing of data, with sharing of EMRs, which has happened in some alliances as well as some mergers. There are IT challenges that come up that we have to be patient with. And then one kind of on the side of finances and reporting, we know that we have to ensure that it is a mutually beneficial arrangement. And there can be a lot of tension when one organization, if it's a health center or another larger aid service organization, holds the funding, and the other organization feels like they're waiting to kind of receive the funding or in less control of that partnership. So these are all things to keep in mind. Obviously, with reporting for two organizations versus one, a timeline needs to be adjusted. So avoid building resentment by keeping communication and appreciation flowing, and ultimately trust on the underlying relationship and your goal of supporting the shared clients. One note that we've heard from health centers partnering with community-based organizations is that not only for the community-based organizations do they have the benefit of adding patient care services, but they might also have access to capacity building for quality assurance, data analysts or financial experts or legal experts that they didn't before. So it's great to take advantage of that. And also noting that this might not replace the long-standing MOUs or relationships that you have outside of it, but can build on that. And the last point is that real-time bidirectional access to client data and information is essential, especially for improving health outcomes as a result of these partnerships. So I wanted to point out just a couple things before I turn it over to Shana, and that's some resources in TA that's available related to this topic. Health HIV offers a Remaining Relevant in the New Reality training, which is a sustainability training for ASOs and CBOs. And one of the content areas that we focus on is identifying and developing strategic alliances and collaborative partnerships. We also talk about readiness for change and leading change, which can be a very important piece to keep in mind throughout a partnership development process. Business planning, practice transformation, and data sharing. So if you're interested in remaining relevant, it's a regional training, you can contact me. More information is also available at the link on this slide. And lastly, our ASO CBO Leadership Initiative has a couple of activities that are ongoing. We have a certificate program that's 6 modules. And if you're interested in becoming a certified ASO leader, there's a free program online you can access using this URL. And we also have a webinar series that goes along with the online self-paced modules. And this webinar series will be continuing throughout this year. Here are just a variety of topics, but we have many webinars archived on Health HIV's website that you can go back and access as well. And our initiative is also launching a State of ASO and CBO survey. It's launching next month in July to look at kind of where ASOs and CBOs are at in providing services, what their needs are, and better understand some of the transformations they've been making over the past few years as a result of the changing landscape. So with that, I will turn it over to Shana. We'll hold questions to the end, and I thank you guys very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Marissa, and thank you, Emily. I noticed a few comments toward the beginning of the webinar, mentioned that we might be feeling a little bit depressed listening to some of the updates that Emily had. So hopefully these strategies and resources will give you a little bit more hope. And another point, if you're not able to access the slides through the folder icon at the bottom right of your screen, you can provide your email and we will send them out to you afterwards, but they should be available there. And we've been covering some strategies for navigating this dynamic healthcare environment. There's been a lot of changes, and so fiscal sustainability has become a big concern for a lot of healthcare agencies, and income diversification is a big part of that. I know Marissa mentioned strategic partnerships as well are important, and so that's another component of sustainability planning. And this part of the session will go more into the key components of revenue generation and income diversification. So these first couple questions will frame the discussion about sustainability planning and income diversification. First, if you think about what happens when funding gets cut from your agency or your program, if you have a large grant that's ending soon or is being cut, how will you maintain your services for your constituents or your consumers? How will you maintain the core or daily operations at your agency? These are a lot of questions that come up and concerns that a lot of agencies have as they're looking ahead to these funding changes and changing priorities in funding. So one of the first main components to think about is staying on your organization's mission. A lot of organizations that stray from their mission fail, and they may do this in order to increase or maintain cash flow, but this can be dangerous in that the mission really drives the organization's programming. And if the funding doesn't match the staff capacity or the need of the constituents, programs can be less sustainable. So pursuing new funding should involve strategic decisions to ensure that the funding is in line with the organization's mission, and whether this is grant funding or fee-for-service opportunities, determining whether it's in line with staff capacity and skills will really keep the organization most sustainable. And do these funding opportunities address the identified need that your program addresses? Another key component is that the internal stakeholders are key to ensuring sustainability of the agency. Everyone in the organization needs to be at the table when it comes to sustainability planning, and this is often left to the program director or development position or ED to make decisions regarding this topic, but everyone should have a role. And for the board of directors, who has a direct role in ensuring sustainability, they can assess current sources of revenue and what the reliability of a certain single funding sources. They can also connect the organization to external resources. They can help develop and approve a budget. Same goes for the executive director. They can determine opportunities to expand revenue sources. They can think about the internal opportunities and use of resources and skills internally to maximize their staff capacity. They can also introduce the organization to potential or prospective funders. Management and frontline staff are also a key component to sustainability in that they are often responsible for meeting service delivery goals and objectives, and collecting data to demonstrate outcomes and performance. And of course, constituents are directly impacted by the sustainability of programs as well. So all staff should be engaged in sustainability discussions and organizational development and decisions around new revenue generation. So healthcare nonprofits need to be able to adapt their revenue models to the changing funding priorities. And there has been a greater emphasis, as we've heard, on moving away from grant-based funding, especially at the federal level, which is based on being paid X amount to perform a service, and